One family that wants a closer look at the college culture associated with Sydney University are the Kellys. Stuart Kelly was 14 when his older brother Thomas was killed by a one-punch attack in July 2012.
I now no longer have an older brother. Instead, I have a hole in my life that somehow I'm meant to come to terms with and accept.
Thomas Kelly's death sparked a public campaign to reduce alcohol-fuelled violence, and New South Wales went on to introduce lockout laws.
Australia is an alcoholic. We need to rethink the way we drink.
But there was a backlash to the laws and the Kellys' public advocacy.
Keep Sydney open! Keep Sydney open! Keep Sydney open!
Stuart, who was sports mad, funny and well liked, spent just one night at St Paul's College in February 2016. Less than 6 months later, he took his own life. His parents and sister farewelling a son and brother for the second time in 4 years. Mr and Mrs Kelly are searching for answers. They believe something happened to Stuart on that February night at St Paul's. Mr and Mrs Kelly, thank you very much for coming in to speak to us today.
Thank you for having us.
You took your son Stuart to St Paul's College in February 2016 to live there when he was starting university, and you left him there for his first night. He seemed happy and like his usual self. What happened the next morning?
It was, we had dinner with him, so we actually went there in the afternoon, and he had to sign a St Paul's book that he was going to be, he was a part of the college, and he also had to sign a disclaimer for orientation week, that the college didn't take any responsibility. And in hindsight, I look back at that and think, well, why is there a disclaimer for what should have been a fun event? At Stuart's funeral, some of the boys who were in his year group at school were at the college, and they approached one of the masters at the school and said that night Stuart was held down, had alcohol poured down his throat against his will, was struggling to get away, was saying no, was being bullied at the same time, and that he managed to actually break away from what was happening, and from what we understand he ran off.
And then what happened the next morning?
He called and we were both in the car, and he said, you need to come and pick me up. I'm outside RPA Medical Centre. So immediately I was worried. I said, what's happened? Are you okay? And he said, just come. When we got there, he had his head in his hands sitting in the gutter and got into the car and just sobbed uncontrollably. So we took him home.
What was his behaviour like in the days and weeks after that?
So he stayed in his room the entire day and the entire night. He only came out to eat or to shower.
And for somebody to be that normal up until the day we walk into a place and then be picked up less than 24 hours later and you could not talk to him anymore, and certainly about, the future of his life and what he was going to do and going to university, it was just completely out of the question.
We know that Stuart took his own life in July 2016. After you were through the immediate aftermath of that and you were seeking to find answers to your questions, did you take steps to try to find out what happened that night at the college?
So he took his life on the Monday morning. On Thursday night, I received a call from a very senior person in the college who passed on his condolences to our family, and then said he'd been contacted by someone in the media about Stuart not sleeping in the college that night. And he also then said, I have no interest in investigating what happened on the night of the 22nd of February 2016 when Stuart was at the college. And with that, he just hung up. And as a dad who just lost his second son, I was not ruffled, I was in shock that anybody, at least a senior person within the college, could make a phone call like that to a father who was in grief.
Were there any other avenues available to you to try to find out what had happened?
So the police have been investigating the cause, but I think what's really important to understand here, and it's very topical, is that suicide is not a crime. But as I've said to Kathy, what precedes it may just be. So there's a lot of unanswered questions that we believe are missing, and I think we need closure. Why did we lose a second child? it's been just a terrible, terrible time for our family the last almost 2 years.
We know there have been multiple cases where there is evidence of hazing, victimisation, bullying and abuse in various colleges. You understandably want to know if anything like that has contributed to your son's mental state leading up to his suicide. What are you now calling for to help you get these answers that you're looking for?
We're calling for a coronial inquiry into Stuart's death for 2 reasons. Firstly, to try to have an answer as to what happened to him that night, and it will just be an answer, but at least it will give Kathy and I closure and Madeline closure. But secondly, the colleges have a duty of care. So can the coroner investigate this on a broader scale as well to make sure that young students who are entering, as Stuart did, with this sense of excitement about the next stage of their life, don't wind up as a victim.
Mr. and Mrs. Kelly, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee.
you.